I hear a lot of people say that you shouldn't compare games, which is ridiculous. If you don't compare the games to each other, how do you know which one is the better game to play? Hello everyone, I'm Bunny Bouncer and welcome back to my rabbit hole of gaming and all things in the geekdom. I've been seeing a lot of WoW refugees lately fleeing to games like Final Fantasy XIV, ESO, and Guild Wars 2, which are the current top tier MMOs. WoW used to be among them. I never played it, but it kind of seems like Blizzard screwed over their fan base. I don't even know what they did, but man, they're mad.
You done messed up, Aaron!
So with this influx of WoW players who were just disenfranchised with Blizzard, I thought I'd take a look at my 3 favorite MMOs, which happen to be the top tier MMOs right now. Final Fantasy XIV, Elder Scrolls Online, and Guild Wars 2. Now, these games flat out on the surface are all very different. Storylines, graphics systems, and the overall look of these games. But they actually do have a lot of similarities that it might be good to know where certain ones excel and other ones kind of just fall on the wayside. First off, level syncing. Let's start with Final Fantasy XIV. In Final Fantasy XIV, the level syncing occurs in things like dungeons, duties, trials, and fates, and it annoys me. It's well done and it makes sense in most scenarios. So when you level sync in Final Fantasy XIV, in dungeons, duties, and trials, it's automatic. You don't have to worry about it. In fates, you have to hit a button. And fates is actually where the most of my annoyance comes in. But I'll get to that. The syncing does exactly what it says it does. It just takes your level down to whatever the max level of that certain event is. My issue with that is it takes away all of your skills and abilities past that level. Again, it makes sense, but when you're a level 50, dropping down to a level 20 dungeon, and you now have none of your abilities that you've gotten used to playing with, it's kind of jarring. And it really it annoys me. Now, granted, it's probably me acting a little spoiled, but I can even get past that. My issue, primarily with Final Fantasy XIV and their level syncing, is that when you're doing the fates, you're in this certain area. And in this certain area is where you have to be sunk into that fate. And if you even come close to the barrier of that area, it drops you out of sync. And I have died accidentally so many times because as I'm playing my bard and I'm kiting mobs and I'm fighting, I accidentally come close to that barrier and then my health drops dramatically because it shot me up back 30 levels and I have to sync again and unsyncs me again. And it's a system that if you're not dead center, it can get a little annoying. Again, it makes sense. But my internal exasperation with it just... Now, Guild Wars 2. Guild Wars 2 doesn't contain a whole lot of traditional style quests. Most of the world traveling quests, like, you'll come across this side quest or this side quest, is in the form of these hearts in these certain areas. And when you're in those certain areas, it auto-syncs you to that level of that quest. In fact, I think in every single instance of the game, it syncs you in some kind of way. Not a huge problem because in Guild Wars 2 you only have certain abilities, and once you choose that class, those abilities are always open. Now, of course, being too low for an area, it still counts the same as it would in any other game, but it eliminates the issue of, playing with a friend who's a veteran of the game, and them not being able to do things with you because they're too high level. They can come with you anywhere that you go, and they will automatically be the same level as you. Now, ESO. Elder Scrolls Online has the best system of the 3 in my opinion. I don't actually fully understand how the system works, so I'm going to explain it to you the way that I kind of comprehend it. Rather than combat being level-based, it is actually difficulty-based. So the mob has the same level of difficulty to a level 2 as it does to a level 50. I don't know if I explained that right. If you're a level 50, a trash skeleton will be just as difficult for you to fight as it would be for a level 2. So I could do dungeons with my friends who are max level, and I would still be just as effective as them. Which makes it very friendly for newcomers, especially newcomers who have friends who are already playing the game. And it really removes any particular boundaries that you might face with, levels. Because you can't be too high, and you can't be too low. Next thing is class and abilities. So, Guild Wars 2, although I loved my Firebrand, I think Guild Wars 2 honestly really loses this for me. Classes are diverse, and no matter what class you pick, you are automatically all 3 roles. You have self-heals, you have DPS, and there's no real instance where you need a tank. It makes the game very soloable, but it is highly dependent on meta builds, and I can't stand meta builds. Your build in game should be determined by what you want to play, what you're looking to get out of the class, and what you like. And also by your skill, not an in-game system that forces everybody to conform to it so that they can succeed and progress in the game. Because if you don't have a meta, you will be overlooked for groups, you'll be overlooked for raids, you'll be overlooked for a whole lot of things because you are not the meta build. And it's almost impossible to succeed in PvP. That's what meta builds do. They make it to where anybody can play this class and play it perfectly and have zero skill whatsoever in the class. It is the participation trophy of gaming. Abilities-wise, Guild Wars 2 is kind of a middle ground. They have a good selection of abilities to pick from to kind of make it more unique. But honestly, if you're playing Guild Wars seriously, you're using the meta build, so that doesn't even matter. But you have enough customization in your secondary bar if you wanted to use it, that it makes the lack of customization in your primary bar less bothersome. Final Fantasy XIV. They have so much variety of classes and abilities, and I love it, because no two people will play the same, and it's highly centered on your skill in your class. Being a Trinity game, it's necessary that each person learn their role, learn their class, and then learn to play it well. So it's noticeable when someone is bad at the game, bad at their role, or just bad at that class. There is no meta. People can really play it however they want to play. Some might say that there's an optimal way to play certain classes, but you can play it any way you want to so long as you do your job and you play well. In fact, someone might use a meta and they might be awful at the game because they have no skill at it, and someone can use all the wrong skills, all the wrong spells, and be fantastic at their character, purely because of their skill.
You know, like nunchuck skills, bow hunting skills, computer hacking skills.
The only minus with this is coming from ESO, I got kind of spoiled with their class and ability system, which leads me into ESO. I really enjoyed my Warden and not being confined to a certain weapon or a certain armor type, and still got to be a healer. ESO system lets you choose any class, because any class can be any role. You can do a Warden and wind up being the DPS, you can do a Warden and go straight healing, or you can go straight tank. And you can choose any weapon to go with it and any armor type to go with it. So a Warden could be a plate-wearing healer with a great big huge axe, or it could be a cloth-wearing tank with a bow. I am not advising those choices, because those are really bad choices for those roles. But you could do it and you could be successful. ESO is very skill-based. I honestly don't even know if they know what a meta is. You have diversity of weapons, you have diversity of armor, you have different abilities and the trees they go down, but you also have what those abilities morph into as well. The only minus is the lack of abilities you get to choose from in any chosen skill tree. I think each set skill tree only contains like 5 abilities. Now, story and game progression. Elder Scrolls has a good story. I enjoy it, but at no point has it ever felt necessary. And to some, that might be a good thing. I mean, this entire list of everything that I'm giving you guys is all preference-based as well. But for me, it's a really huge minus, because story determines the role-playing in the game. It's how you feel like you're part of that world, it's how you feel committed to what's happening in it, it is how you connect to your character and to the other characters of the game to make what you're doing in the game actually matter to you. So a passable story means a passable environment. And again, I love ESO. It has a lot of merits. But as good as the story is, because it does have a good story, it doesn't pull you in and keep you. Not because of the story itself, but because of the style of game that this is. The story is not needed to progress. You don't have to do the story to level or get to the end of the game. You can completely push it to the side and not worry about it. So you end up not doing it. And it has now become a little meaningless. Guild Wars 2 is a middle ground here, because for big periods of the game, the story is, just like ESO, it's meaningless. It's good, but it's not needed. And then for large periods, it felt like that was all I was doing. Because leveling isn't a huge mark of progression in the game. Weird as that might sound. Beginning game, maybe. But one of my grouping buddies said it best. He told me that Guild Wars doesn't actually start until you're level 80, which is very, very true. Up until 80, the story is good, but it's not actually needed. After 80, when you reach the big expansions, the story is awesome, and it's a big part of everything that you do in the game. It makes it feel like everything before 80 is a tutorial, and everything after 80 is the real game. Cool thing, though, is that they offer level 80 tokens to get you skipped by the tutorial. Now, Final Fantasy XIV. Ugh, I'm not even done. And this game has the most gripping story of any game I've ever played. More so than a lot of movies. I've gotten teary-eyed on multiple scenes. Multiple scenes. I can't talk about the story without actually wanting to talk about the story. So good. And you have no choice but to jump into the story, because it is the only way to progress in the game. You can't level without it. You don't reach a lot of dungeons without it. You make money through it. In fact, that's the only way that I have made money. They force you to do the story. And so you wind up feeling like you actually have a stake in this world. And it's shown how good the story is and how good a job they did at making the story pull you in by the community that it's created. And the other two games just don't have this community. ESO, I didn't really notice a community at all. Sticking to my group was easy, and I never felt like I needed to expand outside of it. Guild Wars 2 is either really good or it is incredibly toxic. And honestly, I've seen it be toxic far more than I've seen it be good, especially at max level events. But Final Fantasy XIV is so much different than them because of the role-playing aspect. And that is thanks to the story. It has created this community of people who feel invested into this game. They feel invested into every expansion and every little tiny update. They want to see the newbies or the sprouts be successful because they remember their time at the beginning and it's almost nostalgic for them. People are invested into this game world. It is a tight-knit, helpful, and supportive gaming community. I mean, you'll always have these toxic one-offs, but it really is a fun, highly role-played community. And again, that is thanks to how good they did with their story and making the story necessary for the progression. I might do a part 2 to this. We'll see. Comment down below if you want a part 2 and what things you would like me to bring up and look into if I do.